S90 crossover with gaps, holes, and Fibonacci levels. The perfect S90 crossover is found on a Fibonacci level when the horizontal line that is drawn from original support or resistance of the founding trading range actually cuts precisely through a gap in the market. Gaps, because the normal rule or thought about gaps is that they must be filled. The odds of filling the gap become extremely good, and you can see how many other types of confirmation will signal the return of market to fill the gap. When an occurrence like this happens, you will observe that a perfectly precise S90 crossover strike is often followed by immediate reversal. If you are trading towards the gap, this type of target offers a second reversal entry with an extremely tight stop of normally less than 10 pips. As the market bounces from the strike, the reversal target should be Fibonacci level based on previous trading range such as 0.618, 0.50 or even 0.328 level. Holes in the market, patterns that appear on chart often have great significance. One of these patterns in particular is what I refer to as holes in market. This figure illustrates hole in the market, the space between when an S90 becomes legal and time of market reaches S90 level. This figure is an illustration of large hole in the market, and this figure is an illustration of small hole in the market. This figure shows this figure shows how perfect resistance crossover is found crossing over exactly at the bottom of the gap, and the perfect support crossover is found crossing over at the top of gap. Another variable to consider regarding S90 crossover is what we call first strike, which is shown in this figure and this figure and this figure. Larger time compressions have more value and strength when the S90 crossover is combined with a gap. This figure shows a weekly chart that was filled in association with S90 crossover, and this figure illustrates another classic hole pattern. There have been many books written about gaps. A gap is useful as long as it is a legal gap as opposed to illegal gap. The difference is that an illegal gap appears due to data loss and the gap may not be filled at later date, whereas the legitimate gap will be filled especially if an S90 crossover is involved. Traders frequently do not consider the holes in market that are often associated with S90 crossover. Small holes and larger holes all predict a return of market to certain historical areas, which will allow you to trade towards target that fill holes. If you by chance an S90 crossover with legal gap is the target range and the market hole that needs to be filled, then odds of target being reached are very great. In summary, when hole is forming, an S90 crossover and or gap that is close to hole target becomes apparent and will be needed to complete hole in the market, then the probability of a successful target strike has increased tremendously. Smaller time compressions are not as reliable as larger time compressions.